All right, Kevin back with you for another episode of the $1 Million Relationships Podcast. And today I'm here with David Weaver. David, welcome. So awesome to have you here today.
Thank you for having me, Kevin. Excited to talk with you.
Oh, I'll tell you, I have been looking forward to this conversation. I mean, you and I want to start by giving a shout out to Serena because, Serena is the one that connected you and I. And Serena Maston, I doubt that you and I would even be talking right now if it wasn't for Serena. But the beautiful thing is when we get connected through a relationship that we already have. I don't know how it feels for you, David, but I know it feels this way for me, is because it came through Serena, who is somebody that I already, just really love. I love who she is. I love how she shows up. I love her story. I mean, man, you talk about a story that you just have so much empathy for her when she shares it. And I'm also so impressed hearing how she's been through so much and just still not just surviving, but thriving and just doing such amazing things in the world. And when we get connected through somebody like that, it's like from the first time I spoke with you, I'm like, man, I felt like we'd known each other for years just because we got connected through Serena and stuff. And so,
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely a different place, and especially in this case with Serena, she is such an amazing human being, like you said, that it just automatically creates a different level of connection right off the bat.
yeah, for sure, for sure. And of course, that's what this podcast is all about, is about relationships. And when we have relationships with the right people, and there's trust in both character and competence, and when there's that just alignment of interests and values, when those things are in place, my goodness, it is just so easy for business to just come from that.
Mhm.
Because the relationship is there first. And so, what I want to do is, I want to start off. I want to start off by turning it over to you, David, and I want to set the stage here a little bit. I want to set the context for our listeners. So, I want you to be able to share about. I'm going to kind of lump this all together because I kind of want to give you free range to go with whatever your heart feels like led to share. But I want to let the listeners know about what you do, who you serve, what inspires you most about the work you're doing and the impact you're making in the world. And also, I want to hear some of the backstory into how you got into doing what you do and how you got to where you're at right here, right now. Because every entrepreneur has an amazing story, and we other entrepreneurs, we love hearing your story. So,
Cool. Yeah. And what's cool about, I think, what I'm going to share a bit with my story is that it ties into the person that I want to talk about today as well
okay,
so much. And it's an
perfect.
integral part of my story. Without that, I don't know what it would look like. It'd be totally different. So, um, yeah. So we'll start like right now. So, as you're talking about relationships, I was thinking about, you know what? Actually, if I get to the root of what I help people with right now, it's helping business owners with the relationship with themselves.
Okay,
And
okay.
so, because I've found that that is the most important thing in them getting to create whatever they want to create in the world. So they're like, hey, I want to have this life that I love. I want to have this business that I'm really proud of and feel like I lived without regrets. And
Yeah,
that's my purpose, I feel like, is to help people do that and go in that direction. And that completely starts with yourself. Because if you're beating yourself up, if you have all kinds of, head trash that's going on up there, it's really hard to create that.
yeah, yeah.
And yeah, that really inspires me because when I got into what I'm doing now, I thought I was going to be doing something completely different. I thought I was going to be doing business coaching. And I started working with people and realizing more and more and more that so many of the challenges that they were facing in their business were related to the, this thing up here. For the
Yes,
podcast people, yeah, your head. I'm pointing to your
yes,
head for
yes.
anyone not watching on video. And so I just, I completely shifted and just kind of went with what I was seeing. And then it also turns out like I really love that stuff. It's a lot of fun because that means I get to have real conversations with people where
Yes.
it's not service level stuff. We're like talking about the real stuff there. And then if we can help transform that and create those things that are holding them back and turn it into fuel, then yeah, they can just create anything that they want.
Yeah. Yeah. I can totally relate to that, especially in the work that I get to do today, because I serve some entrepreneurs who are pretty amazing entrepreneurs doing really big things in the world, and in most cases, far bigger stuff than I've ever done personally.
Mhm.
And so I used to put them on this pedestal kind of. And like, they're like way up here and I'm like way down here somewhere because I'm doing the comparison thing, you know.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
you start doing that and that's a game we'll never win, you know, when we start comparing because there's
Yes.
always somebody doing better, doing more, has more, whatever, you know.
Yeah.
And comparing ourselves is really the thief of joy and stuff. And it also for a long time because I put folks on a pedestal like that, it really slowed me down in being able to even do what I do.
Mhm.
And it just because in the back of my mind I'm like, who do I think that I am trying to serve somebody like that, you know?
Yes. Mhm.
And I'm not even worthy or whatever. I mean, all the stuff that we tell ourselves that, you know, I had to work through that with the help of a coach
Mhm.
and work through that stuff. And once I got to the point, well, of course these people are coming to me. Who's going to take better care of them than me? Nobody else is even doing what I do. I'm like a class of one that nobody else even does what I do. And
Mhm.
so there's nowhere else that they can go to get the kind of service that I can deliver for them and the kind of help and the speed at which we can do it. And so, but you know, once it's all the head stuff first, and
Yep.
then hardly any tactic and strategy because we kind of like once we get out of our own head, then we kind of just like know, like, oh, I know what I need to do.
Yeah. It's so crazy. I mean, sometimes I've had cases where I work with a client and I help them, and I'm thinking of one in particular where she was having all kinds of challenges around that limitations that she's putting on herself, and then it was overflowing into communication with her family, with her
Yeah.
kids, with her business partners, all these things. And we just worked on her. And then like long story short, she ended up selling her business like a year, 2 years after that. And
Okay.
we didn't do anything to the business really.
That's
But the
amazing.
shift that she made was like so impactful and how she was interacting with everybody and how she was making decisions,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And then therefore that all did impact the business down the road. But it was just a cool example of like what your business is hitting records and now you're selling it and all this stuff and like we really didn't do that much.
Yeah, yeah. And that's what, you know, that, yeah, that's what I've experienced too and stuff is once I got out of my own head and once I realized that, oh yeah, you totally got the goods, you can totally deliver and stuff. And when you have that level of confidence that like, I just know I can, for the right people, man, I can totally, I can rock their world, you know, for the
Yeah.
right people. And when you just know that, now you just you come across different because now you're not trying to like talk people into doing business with you. They just and it's like it's this thing that they maybe they can't even voice it, they can't even say it, but when you don't have that confidence they can feel that something's off too, and it's
Yes.
not a verbal thing, it's a body language thing. And when you do have that confidence, the same is true. They're like they feel that too and stuff. And
Hmm.
so the right people just like and the business then takes off. You know? And so
Yes.
yeah, that is
Yeah.
powerful. That is powerful. So
Right.
how did you get into doing this kind of work, David?
Yeah. So this does go way back. So I've been an entrepreneur since 2008.
Okay.
So prior to that, I was trying to figure it out. I was like, what do I want to do? My dad is working in corporate America, not loving life, and not even like, in a white collar scenario, just in a normal corporation. And still works there to this day. Sometimes he's doing well, sometimes not, but I was like, I don't want that. But I
Hmm.
don't know beyond what it is because when I was younger, I was super heavily involved in music and like I was going to be a rock star. That was like the dream,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
And I remember I was having a conversation with a friend and she was like, "So what happens if music doesn't work out for you?" And I just hung up. Just click. Like, how dare you suggest this is not going to work?
I don't want to go there.
Yeah, yeah. I called her back, whatever. But um, I didn't know what to do, and so I was exploring all kinds of different options. I got a good job at a engineering company working in IT, and it was basically just I knew somebody, and I was young, and I was familiar enough with technology to get a job there, but I really had no interest in it, and it
Okay.
wasn't like in any way fulfilling for me. And so I was trying to find like what is something that can be meaningful for me and also help feel like I'm contributing to the
Yeah.
world, to other people, and like doing something that matters. Um, I think that's the big piece that I saw, like that my dad didn't have that he wanted to have was like he didn't feel like he was contributing to anything that much.
Okay. Okay.
And so I was like, maybe I'll be a firefighter, went and did testing for that. Maybe I'll go special forces. Maybe I went to, so that kind of gives you an idea of what kind of drive I've had as a kid was like these types of high drive things. And none of those really panned out. And so I got is interested in like the health and fitness world. And this was I mean, it's kind of crazy. This was right around the birth of, for listeners out there, of CrossFit.
Okay.
And so I don't know if yeah, are you familiar with that, Kevin?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. So it was kind of during that time, and all these small micro gyms were popping up all over, and CrossFit facilities and things like that. So it was very much like in fashion, and we were on the very front end of that, and we're like, hey, we could help people with this. And so I decided to go to school for that. So I went to school for it, then got out and we got our first couple clients and I think we just trained them for free. Yeah. We just had two friends were like, hey, can we just like experiment on you guys basically? All this stuff that we've learned. And they were like, yeah, sure. And then we ended up getting them great results. And then it just kind of ballooned from there. And before you know it, we were like, hey, we can do this thing. We can like start our own, our own business and, um, got our first commercial space. And it also happened to be, 2008-ish around there when we started that was the downturn, if you remember, with the economy it was
Yes.
pretty rough, which was fortunate for me at my IT job because they had like 30% of the people had been laid off. And I had a job. I don't know why. Maybe because I think because the owner liked me and I used to go to his house and fix things for him. Um, but I was able to just like lower my hours. Say, I went to my boss, say, hey, can I just work 30 hours a week now? Hey, can I just work 20 hours a week now? As this other business grew, it was so cool that we were able to do it that way because
That
it
is
was
awesome.
such a low stress way to enter
Yeah.
into
Yeah.
entrepreneurship, right? Because we still had this like foundation as we were letting things shift.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah. So then we that just ballooned from there. And part of the beginning of that, and the person that I want to honor is like we went to we wanted to learn from the best because I got out of school, we tried some stuff, we had some success, but we also saw that like a lot of these things don't work that I
Uh-huh.
learned in school, and
Mhm.
it's like old knowledge, old
Yep.
data, like they're not actually working with people. So we're like, we need to go learn from the best people. So we went to Austin, Texas, and
Okay.
I'm pretty sure my parents like helped us get down there. I can't remember. I feel like they did. And there were all these amazing people that we were learning from, all these amazing coaches, and anybody who's in the CrossFit world will just say I was at the Black Box Summit. And if you know what that is, it's kind of ridiculous. There was other drama that ensued there, but anyway, there were amazing coaches there, and one person in particular, like when everybody got up on the stage, this coach, all the other coaches were also like, what is this guy talking about? Like focused in on him because he just had this like, I want to know what he knows, right?
Uh-huh.
He had that
Uh-huh.
magnetic, like the certainty, the energy that we were talking about earlier, where like it's attracting energy, not like he didn't need any of us. And
Yeah.
um, so and his name is James Fitzgerald. and
Okay.
he's the owner of OPEX, used to be formerly OPT. And he announced that weekend that he was going to do his first like coaching certification program. And so I was like, I'm in. I went in. I was in the first class of starting that. Um, but that was the beginning of that relationship that
Okay.
changed the trajectory of our lives. And then, I'll
So
pause
what
here for a
year
minute,
was
but
it?
yeah.
What year was it that you were at that event in Austin, David?
I want to say 2008 or 2009,
Okay.
I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're talking that was my goodness. So that was 17 years ago. It's been a little
Yeah.
while. Time
Yeah.
flies,
Yeah.
doesn't it? Because
Uh-huh.
and so okay, so what happened? So you meet this guy at this
Yep.
event and stuff. You hear him because he's speaking. He's on stage at the event. And
Yep.
and how many coaches, how many were in attendance at that event, David?
That's a good question. Maybe like 100 people. I don't know.
Okay.
Not a
Okay.
crazy huge thing, but like, a full room in the space we were in. I could still
Yeah.
picture it in my mind. Yeah.
Yeah. And so this guy, he just showed up in a way that just all the other coaches just immediately just kind of like took note that like, man, this guy is different. This guy,
Yeah.
and of course you did too. You noticed that. So what happened? So you ended up you signed up for this thing that he was going to doing tell me, just let's dig
Yep.
into this a little bit.
Yeah. So he was launching his first coaching certification program and CCP level one, and he's Canadian. So and he lived in Calgary, and I live in Seattle area, and so it was the first one was 5 different modules, which meant I had to go to Calgary 5 times in a year,
Wow.
and then come back, do all the practical. We have the weekend where we learn everything, come back, actually do the work with clients, get the stuff, and then go. It was like an internship in a way, like an apprenticeship where you had to actually prove that you knew this stuff too, not
Uh-huh.
just go learn
Mhm.
about it and then get a certificate because you attended. Um, and yeah, there's so much good wrapped up in that time because, when you're at the beginning of something new, you're so excited and there's
Yeah.
just so much of that like beginner's mind and the hopefulness of like what's to come. And
Yeah.
driving through the mountains in the wintertime up there, like in February, driving from Seattle to Calgary is like just an exciting adventure in itself.
Sure. Sure.
you know? And so I just had the opportunity to learn from him who had been doing it at a high level successfully, what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And like
Yeah.
that's I've learned that lesson that time and have followed it since. Like, go learn from the person who's doing what you want to do. It's the quickest way to get there. Like, you can go look it up now online. It's even easier to do that. But if you can learn it from somebody who's done it,
Totally.
it's the best way. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So you started going through this training. How long was the training, David?
So the first one took me a year. There was like level two stuff too. It ended up,
Okay.
I trained with him for a long time. And then I also hired him personally as my own coach and worked
Okay.
with him for
Okay.
like 4 years as my own coach. And
Okay.
yep.
And then how long did it take for you when did you get your first client doing what he was showing you how to do and stuff?
So we already had some people that we were
Okay.
working with, but then I was just able to like up level every time I came back and like
Yeah.
provide higher and higher quality,
Yeah.
service to the people that we were serving. And that's one of the things that I wanted to mention that I'm super thankful for is because stuff like helping somebody lose weight is great and helpful and in one thing, but stuff like we had this gal she was in her 70s and she had a brand new grandkids and she, just being able for her to continue to get on the floor and play with them. That was like her highest, priority thing that she wanted and being able to help her do that and come to find out, she didn't have to go on kidney dialysis because of the stuff that we were doing that she was going to have to
Wow.
do.
Wow.
That's just like, you
That's
know,
life changing right there.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
what it's all about. And like,
Yeah.
so having the opportunity to have stories like that, to have people, that we're able to help impact in that way, it's all this trickle down effect. and even still to this day, all of the things that he taught me and we implemented. Like one of my favorite things is we would go to these classes and we would talk and people would raise a hand and ask a question, or he would ask a question, and then the answer would be like 9 times out of 10, it depends.
Yeah.
And I think that that one thing right there is so valuable, especially even more so now in an age where like, what's the answer? I need to know exactly how to do it instead of like discovering for yourself, trying to figure it out, well, considering why might it be this or why might it be that. And um, it's a much more empowering way to like operate in the world. And there's so many little nuggets like that that I learned from him over the years that still to this day, you use and still
Yeah.
like, my kids, the way that we value our health in this house and how we eat and how that looks so different than most households. Like this morning for breakfast, we had salmon and cabbage, and then they had some blueberries and yogurt for breakfast.
Mhm.
It's not really normal for like young kids to be like that. That's totally normal to them. They don't know any other way.
Mhm.
And so
Mhm.
things like that, it creates this legacy of health. It creates this
Yeah.
impact and this ripple, and you know all the people that he's coached over the years and everything. It's incredible. So
Yeah. Wow. Wow. And you're right. I love that. So you already had clients that you were working with before you started working with him, but your work with him allowed you to become exponentially more valuable to the clients you were already working with and stuff. And
yes.
uh, and I got to imagine, and I know I speak from my own experience too. The more valuable we become, it boosts our own confidence too and stuff. And so that it was as we're talking with new prospective clients, we're just like, when we just know we're talking with the right person, we just know like, oh man, we totally got it with this person. And
Hmm.
every once in a while, they might not see the vision that we can see for them and stuff. And
Oh
and maybe
yeah.
they don't invest in us because they can't see it or they don't believe in themselves or they just can't, and like, man, I just have empathy for those folks because I'm like, man, I know I can help them, but they're just not seeing it. But
Yeah.
when there is that alignment where we know we can help someone and they see, oh yeah, I believe that David can help me too. When that alignment is there and we get to start just doing our thing together, man, it is magical. It is
Hmm.
absolutely magical. And so I want you to, and I'm sure you could come up with a lot of examples for this, but I want to have you share an example of a situation, an experience that you had where you made this real impact, a real substantial impact, and maybe even in the moment, maybe it even surprised you a little bit. But you also know that that would have never happened if not for the relationship that you had with this coach who was helping you and stuff. What's an example of something like that, David?
Mm, that is a good question. Thinking back through stories. Yeah, it's like sometimes you don't know exactly. I'm we can fast forward to a recent story because it's fresh in my mind and
Okay.
it's related to that. So um I think because of that relationship, so much of the fundamentals that were kind of there with me were just cemented. And a big piece of that was like consistency, going after the things that really make you feel alive, being curious, being, dedicated to the thing. And and then being open, right? And so one of the greatest joys that I've had recently is that my kids have fallen in love with snowboarding
Okay.
as
Okay.
much or more than me. And I didn't know I've never been like, you have to like this thing because I like this thing, right? Like that's not how we parent. It's like, hey, we're gonna expose you to a bunch of things and what you like, cool.
Yeah.
But however, sometimes things take a while to know if you like it. And so my youngest daughter, she didn't like snowboarding for 2 years.
Okay.
And we're like, okay, that's fine. You don't have to like it, but the rest of us are enjoying it. We're going to go up. It's a family thing, whatever. You don't have to love it. That's fine. For whatever reason, the third year,
It
switch
just clicked.
clicked and she just started loving it because it took that long for the skill development to get
Yeah.
there
Yeah.
to enjoy the thing. And so recently I took them to one of my favorite places on the planet, Mount Rainier, went up to Paradise, and they wanted to do a hike and ride. So carry their snowboards on their back, go
Mhm.
hike up as high as we can make it for the day, and then ride down. And because of the consistency that I show in that example, they want to do it. They say, Dad, hey, can you help us do a workout today? Like, I'm not making them do workouts. This is not like a thing, or whatever. And so they were fit enough to hike up to 9,000 feet on Mount Rainier and then
Wow.
snowboard down. Like, we're talking like an 8-year-old girl, like shredding down where there's no lifts, there's no
Yeah.
nothing. And
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
was like, I didn't know I could experience that much joy and fulfillment and sharing at one of my favorite places with my kids and doing this thing that we all love. It's just amazing. And so I think, well, maybe it's not like the exact, result. It's accumulation of all the things over the years and getting to this point. So
That
yeah.
is that what a phenomenal example, and because I know a lot of entrepreneurs, they they're into the hustle and grind and like, what, and hey, they ain't never gonna get no judgment from me. We all got to do what we feel is right for us, and we're all doing the best we can with what we got. But I have, I've got 7 kids. I've currently got 6 grandkids. And for many years now, I mean, gosh, well, I was even when I started my other company in '04. Uh, so that's been over 20 years now. I have really been focused on I want to have a business that fits in with the lifestyle that I want to live and allows
Mhm.
me to be the husband and father that I want to be first, and then I'll be the entrepreneur that I want to be as well. And so that's been my focus for 21 years now.
Mhm.
And so I've got that business, and I have said no to many revenue opportunities that I could have made some really great money, but it wasn't in alignment with how I wanted to show up. And I, and I believe, for us, showing up the way that we want to show up, not feeling like we have to show up a certain way.
Mhm.
Feeling like we have to show up a certain way is what feels out of alignment and stuff. But when we get to show up the way that we want to, now anybody that we serve or anybody that we interacting with, they're getting us at our very best. And if we don't show up that way, they're not getting us at our best. And we're doing a disservice to them and ourselves and stuff. And
Mhm.
and being able to have the relationship that you have with your kids, man, I know a lot of entrepreneurs that don't have that. They're out there working hard, and then they're like, what? Yep, my kids don't get to see me as much as I'd like, but I'm providing really well for my family.
Mhm.
And I'm heck, I met a billionaire 14 years ago. He was a venture capital guy at the time. And when I met him, and I had shared a little bit of my story in this group that we were in, he ended up coming up afterwards, introduced himself, and he's like, Kevin, I'm going to tell you right now. He's like, man, I just so really resonate with what you're talking about. And he's like, I hang out with some of the wealthiest people in the world, and some of these people, I will tell you, they're the most miserable people you would ever meet.
Mhm.
And he's like, even I have a wife and 2 kids at home that I don't see as often as I would like, and it's all my own doing. And
Mhm.
I sure could go for some more of what you got going on in your life. I could use some of that in my life. And that's how we started our relationship 14 years ago. And him and I to this day, we're very close friends. I have he's made a lot of changes in his life. He doesn't hang out with people he doesn't like hanging out with anymore. He quit doing that years ago. And
Nice.
now he doesn't do anything because if the guy never made another dollar in his life, it wouldn't even matter, you know.
Yeah.
And so now he's at this place where everything he does it because it inspires him to do it, not because he needs to make money or ROI or any of that, you know. And that's
Yeah.
an awesome place to come from, you know.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. 100%. And that's part of how I love to help people now and the work
yeah,
that I do is like, let's intentionally create your life. That's also why I love working with entrepreneurs because you have complete control over your life. Whether you
yeah,
think you do or not, you do.
you do. Yes, you do.
You do. And
Yeah,
so, like in my house, Fridays are for mountains. We don't work on Fridays. We go to the mountains on Fridays. And I get to create that because it's my choice and what we've decided to create as a family.
yeah,
And anybody can create any version of that makes the most sense that like you said, what you actually want, not just what's like by default happening.
yeah,
Um, so
yeah,
yeah, it's cool.
yeah. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time to have this conversation, David. And for anybody who's listening to this right now, going, man, Kev, I really love David. I love who he is. I love how he shows up. And if for anybody who'd like to get more information on you or on what you're doing, any websites, any resources we can share with them?
Yeah, absolutely. And just to kind of put a bow on things, because we didn't really say anything about this, but I don't do health and fitness stuff anymore. And we kind of at the beginning we talked about like how I help in a different way, but just to clarify on that, I was like, how can I keep expanding how I help people?
Uh-huh.
And I wanted to move kind of beyond what I was doing that because I did that for 10 years. And so it's a foundational thing. And if anybody needed help with that, of course I could still, offer lots of advice in that category. But um, so my website, the best way to check out what I'm up to is unbrokenpursuit.com, and that's the name of my company. And on there, you can also, if you're listening to this podcast with Kevin and you know Kevin, just send me a direct email and tell me you heard on here and you want to chat. And you can just david@unbrokenpursuit.com. Super
Okay.
easy. You
Okay.
can always click the apply to work with me button on the website too, and it will take you to my calendar at the end of that.
Perfect. Perfect.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you, and I know I shared this with you before we hit the record button, that my goal in doing these interviews is always twofold. I want to give you the opportunity to share and to honor somebody that has been just had such a profound impact on your life and on your business. And on the other side, for our listeners, I just want to use these interviews to inspire them to place an intentional focus on creating more real, meaningful, rewarding, and profitable relationships in their own lives. And David, with your help today, we certainly delivered on that. And so thank you so much for that. I mean, you are an absolute inspiration. I would imagine that you're going to get a fair amount of people just reaching out to you because this resonated with them. And so, any last thing you feel led to share before we call it a wrap?
Um, the thing that I would just love to leave with people is it's written on my wall over here and it just says what could be possible, and we talked about that a little bit today and how sometimes it's hard to see the possibility and see what's out there, but just really think about that for yourself. Like if what would I love to create if I could create my life exactly how I want it? What could be possible for that? And just
Yeah.
let that simmer.
Yeah, that is awesome. That is awesome. And well, once again, David, thank you so much for taking the time to have this conversation today. And I just really appreciate it and really appreciate you. Thanks again.
Thank you, Kevin.